Today is Thursday, January 30th, 2025. This is Quick Start from CBN News. I'm Dan Andros. Tragedy strikes in D.C. as an American Airlines plane collides with a military Blackhawk helicopter. We'll have that top story and more on today's podcast, where we bring you news from a Christian perspective. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating. You can email us as well. quickstartpodcast@cbn.org. We're so glad you're here each and every weekday, bright and early, with us as we go through the news happening around the United States and the world. Joining me today, CBN's Billy Hallowell. Trey continues to be out. He'll be back next week. On the focus story, Billy, Bevelyn Williams praising God after Trump pardoned her. What's going on here?
Yeah, this is a very wild story. We had a chance to talk with her. We're going to break down what she had to say and what she's planning to do next now that she is free.
All right, looking forward to that. On the main thing, an Israeli special operations soldier speaks to Quick Start about Trump's plan to return Palestinians to Gaza. Make sure you're subscribed to all of our CBN News podcasts, DC Debrief, John Stolness, Newsmakers with Billy, and Jesus and the Prophecies of Christmas as well, our 4-part series. You can check out all of those, and the links are in the description to this podcast episode. All right, with that, we are going to head to the news in 90 seconds. And a massive search operation is underway after a mid-air collision between a U.S. Army Blackhawk helicopter and an American Airlines passenger jet near Reagan International Airport. Authorities say 64 people were on board the plane, along with 3 soldiers in the helicopter. About 300 first responders have been searching the freezing Potomac River where both aircraft went down. Fatalities have been confirmed, and so far no survivors have been pulled from the wreckage. The passenger jet, American Airlines Flight 5342, was en route from Wichita and is reportedly in pieces in the water. The airport shut down at least until 11 a.m. Thursday. Among those on board were several members of the figure skating community, according to the U.S. figure skating and Russian state media. There was an event there happening of figure skating in Wichita. President Trump has reacted to the crash, calling it a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. It's unclear whether his statement was based on an official briefing or not, but he was briefed late last night. That is the main story today. Check out more stories over at cbnnews.com. So we were live last night, Billy, on the CBN News YouTube channel, going through the information as it came in. And there's video of this. You've probably likely seen it by now. And it's just a horrible tragedy that you wonder how. I mean, this is a very busy area. The plane was at 400 feet. It was making its approach into the runway when the military helicopter came in, going kind of with the river while the plane was coming across it towards the runway when they collided. There's now air traffic control audio that captured the moment it happened. The air traffic controller said, PAT-25, do you have the CRJ in sight? That's them talking to the helicopter. The controller then said, PA-25 passed behind the CRJ. And additional air traffic control audio shortly before the collision captures the helicopter pilot saying, PA-25 has aircraft in sight, request visual separation. And then less than 13 seconds later, the audio then captured the gas, including a loud some reaction in the background, apparently from the tower at the moment of the crash. Obviously, they probably see it from the tower. So a horrible tragedy here, Billy, that happened late last night. And there was, obviously that many people on. They initially reported that there were 4 people pulled from the river and rushed to the hospital, which made it seem like maybe they had survived, but it doesn't appear to be the case so far.
It's just, it is a heartbreaking situation. There's a clip going around of a man at the airport whose wife was reportedly on the plane, and he's talking to the reporter. And in those moments, just and you've covered a lot of stories, obviously,
Yeah.
over the years, you think these people are suffering so much. I mean, you think about the family members, the people who knew immediately, oh my goodness, my loved one is on that flight, and what they must be going through. We got to be praying for them. But this really is, for a lot of people, flying is terrifying. And it's sort of the worst, nightmare that they have, to see a story like this. And, to think, with all the technology we have, accidents happen still, right?
Yeah.
But on the flip side, the last time I believe we had anything like this was 2009. So this is a
Yeah.
very rare thing, but just a heartbreaking thing
Yeah.
nonetheless.
Thankfully, it is rare, but it's something every time I'm on a plane and I take off and I land, I'm always praying, because I, just like this, you just never know. If you do get in an accident, it's not like a car accident where you get in a fender bender, you get out and change your insurance information. Like, you're up in the air. Even if you survive whatever the malfunction or crash is in the air, you have to come down to earth at some point. And so it's just, the chances of survival end up becoming very, very slim. And so that's just been a habit of mine. I always want my heart to be in the right place while I'm on a plane, for that reason, but again, nobody knows our day or hour that we're going to be called home. And it's just a reminder, on that front, that we should always be prepared, and we should always be living like that day could happen at any moment, and that we could be face to face with God, because time is in his hand, not ours. And our thoughts and prayers definitely with everybody involved, and with what happened last night in uh, Washington, D.C. Sad stuff, tragic stuff for sure. All right, we are going to head to the focus story now. Bevelyn Williams is praising God after Trump pardoned her. What happened here?
Yeah, this is wild. A lot of people may have seen the video of Bevelyn leaving prison. It went viral. She's walking out of prison, greeting her 2-year-old daughter and her husband, and she's just giddy and excited, to be getting out. Well, that video has gone everywhere, and we had a chance to talk with Bevelyn. She went to prison. She served about 3 months, but she had a 41-month prison sentence for an alleged violation of the Freedom of Access to Clinics Entrances Act. This is the FACE Act. She's one of the 23 pro-lifers who were locked up over protests and the government going after them for violating this FACE Act. And we've talked a bit about this on the show in the past. But, I asked her when we had a chance to talk, and you can watch the full video over on the CBN News YouTube channel. But I was like, what was it like to see the reaction to that viral video? So many people reacting to her leaving prison. And she said when she looks at the video, she tears up, because she's like, I'm back with my baby. She said, a part of me was gone. And so just to watch the fullness of me being reconnected, I'm still trying to take it in. And, we got into the intricacies of her case, right? Why, from her view, what happened and why was she locked up? And one thing she said about Trump that was really interesting, she said she had hoped he would release her, but she said, look, I knew that he would release me. I knew that he was not going to leave me in there if he won and he got elected. And within hours, sure enough, of his inauguration, he began the process of pardoning her and 22 others who were convicted of these violations. So really just a fascinating end to quite a crazy case.
Yeah, it really is. And a happy ending for sure. What does she say about the allegations against her? Because she's accused of blocking, one of these FACE Act violations where you're not letting somebody go in. And what is her reaction to that?
Well, yeah, and this is a confusing story to talk about too, because not only was she accused of it, she was found guilty of it and went to she went to prison and then was pardoned. So you have this really interesting dynamic. I do want to mention, I asked her how she was feeling before I answer that when she heard about the pardon, because she's a Christian, a very strong Christian. And she said I was praising God. I was in the middle of my cell block screaming, praying in the spirit and praising God because once again, he delivered. And I just thought it was a great response from a Christian. and something that she truly wanted, which was to be released. And she talked about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and that story, and how she felt God kind of pressing it on her heart the week before all of this happened, the week before she was pardoned. But let's just go back to what she's accused of. If you go to a July 2024 press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, they cited this 2020 protest, and the government alleged that she interfered at a clinic. She was threatening to use force, and she was trying to stop people from getting what they called lawful reproductive health services at a reproductive health center in Manhattan, which is usually all really referring to just an abortion clinic.
Right.
And so they said that she threatened the staff and all of that, and that a staff's hand was crushed. That was one of the claims. She was pushing a door shut or blocking a door, according to them, and somebody's hand got injured. But she denied a lot of these claims. She told CBN News that she was holding this Jesus Matters rally in 2020, that she did not block doors or slam anyone's hand. She said, "I never got arrested. I never got a citation. There's even video going around on Facebook where I have a court officer saying I never blocked the doors." She said, "What was peculiar about my case is that they waited 2 years to prosecute me right after Roe v. Wade had been overturned to the states." And so her argument is that, look, this happened in 2020, nothing happened to me. And then in 2022, once Roe v. Wade is gone, suddenly me and others are up on charges. And so I asked her, do you think the overturning of Roe was what made them sort of push this case? And she said, yes, that and, Joe Biden coming into office. She really believes she was targeted over her faith. And so one thing I would add too, she wasn't overtaken by anger or rage over any of this. She said she's a Christian, and she's like, I'm never going to sit and be a bitter individual when I know that persecution comes with the package. And so just an interesting story and really an interesting posture she has.
Yeah, amazing attitude to have in the face of all that. What's next for her?
So she's going to continue her pro-life advocacy. She said new doors are opening for her because of all of this, obviously.
Yeah.
And she said she feels like God is really putting her in a position. She also, and we're going to cover this more on CBN in a separate story, but she's also planning on talking more about prisons. She said that there were biological men in her prison, and that this is another issue that she feels, just talking about the conditions in prison, that she needs to address. So I thought that was an interesting piece of the puzzle too.
It really is. And man, when you kind of get chills when you hear her talking about the administration change, and all of a sudden all these pro-lifers are getting targeted. She's been doing this all this time, and then out of nowhere, here they come. And we kind of suspected this, Billy, when we covered the Mark Howe case in depth. He was the one who was protesting outside of a Planned Parenthood in Philadelphia and got in a very minor altercation with one of the workers there. These volunteers at Planned Parenthood who, go around trying to escort people into the abortion clinic. A very minor altercation that got thrown out in local court. That got drug up. He got dragged into federal charges and FACE Act charges, and had FBI agents, guns drawn at his home, frightening his children. And you think, what? Why? What is this? All after Roe. And it really just looked like an abuse of power by the government. And hearing her story, if her side of things end up holding up and being true, then, man, it really looks like what we saw the last few years with these pro-lifers was a major abuse of power.
Yeah, well, and look, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to ask this question of, even if some of these things are true, do you lock someone up? I mean, she's got a 2-year-old. She's not going to see her kid till her kid's 5. I mean, is this some, or do you put them on house arrest? I feel like we hear much more horrific stories of bigger crimes, and people have less punishment for them.
100%. And you see people protesters who destroy priceless artifacts with tomato cans and everything else. You see people who dangerously block traffic on highways and just go out there and sit down, and are protesters that burn things down for an entire city. And then there's this call somehow to have leniency on them. And it's like, this person sitting outside of an abortion clinic and praying, and claims she's not even blocking anyone, not even doing that. Even if they were blocking, it's not life-threatening, as we keep saying whenever we talk about this. It's only life-threatening to the unborn child in the womb who's going in there. They're the one whose life is under threat. Everybody else is just, they're going in there for an optional thing. So to act like they're blocking some sort of, urgent situation is just beyond the pale. And I'm glad that Bevelyn was freed and that she didn't have to miss her young child growing up for the next 3 years and while sitting away in a prison. So a good ending on this one. Appreciate you bringing that to the podcast today, Billy. And we're going to head to the main thing now. And U.S. President Donald Trump is not backing down on his idea to relocate the population of the Gaza Strip to other Arab nations like Jordan and Egypt. Is his bold plan for the Middle East even feasible? CBN's Raj Nair finds out from an IDF Special Operations Unit veteran the sentiments from the Holy Land. That's today's main thing.
U.S. President Donald Trump is not backing down on his idea to relocate the population of the Gaza Strip to other Arab nations like Egypt and Jordan. But is this idea even feasible? What is the reality on the ground? Well, let's bring former IDF Reconnaissance Unit soldier and my dear friend Yoav Rotem into the discussion. Yoav, shalom.
Shalom, Raj.
Let me quote Trump verbatim just so that we can start there, and then I want to get your thoughts. So here's a few of the things he said. He says, you're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out the whole thing. It's literally a demolition site right now. Almost everything is demolished, and people are dying there. And so I'd rather get involved with some Arab nations and build housing at a different location where they can maybe live in peace for a change. She said that on Sunday. Yoav, what are your thoughts?
Look, it's not a new thought here in Israel. Politically, the right wing in Israel is talking about it, but I think after October 7th, a lot of people have been trying to say that for the sake of the Gazans people, the U.S. government have tried from the beginning of the conflict and for many years to separate between the Gazans people and Hamas. The Israelis have evidently realized that it's very hard to make this differentiation because the population is supporting the Hamas and they're all educated to hate and do as many October 7th as they can. The reality on the ground is not enabling to really help this population today, and the best solution for them for better life will be in a different place, while Israel, together with the Arab countries, rebuild Gaza and help and take out Hamas from there, which is kind of, if they were, one of the things that people were presenting during this war is that Hamas has kidnapped the people of Gaza. So this is an opportunity maybe to release them from Hamas and not let Hamas use them as human shields and get rid of Hamas at the end of the day, one day soon, hopefully in the soon future. And Gaza will be what it's supposed to be, a beautiful place and by the ocean after it will have to rebuild.
Do you think it's possible that Egypt or Jordan would accept, 1.5 million to 2 million Gazan civilians?
I don't think that these are the right countries to do so because they're neighboring Israel. I think that there were also other names mentioned in the past week. If people listen carefully, if it's Albania or Malaysia or other places around the world. And again, I don't think it should be pushed by force. I think people there will want to go. And that's an assumption. I mean, the leadership will try to prevent it. I think it could have happened at the beginning of the war that the world will send boats. And I think our leadership mistakenly not promoted it in a way that, again, as a help for the civilians of Gaza to find a safe shelter, until we'll get rid of this problem that people that support Gaza claim that these people hurt the people of Gaza as well, Hamas. So we need to take care of Hamas. Now, whether it's Egypt or Jordan, I think finally speaking about it, it's a good idea. Again, not sending people by force, but helping them. And that's, I think, what Trump means.
Yeah, that's a huge distinction. As I mentioned earlier, you were in a reconnaissance unit, a special unit inside the IDF. So you've seen this up close and personal. What is it like in Gaza right now? Obviously, there's a very tenuous ceasefire that's sort of holding, but the images that we see are utter destruction. So, what's the path forward? I mean, how likely is something like this to happen, or is this kind of political posturing to get surrounding Arab nations to help? What's the reality like on the ground right now in Gaza?
No, I haven't been to Gaza. I finished my service in the reserve, and I did volunteer to do some guarding missions during this war. But as we see from what the pictures coming back and friends that have been there, definitely, and also UN reports are showing us that a lot of these houses have been damaged during the war because Hamas was using them, and the IDF had to attack to prevent, again, Hamas using these facilities, these houses and schools and everything that they were using to attack Israel from. The information I'm getting is that it's going to take only 40 years to just clear the gravel and the ruins from that area. And then there's talks about dozens of thousands of units that have been destroyed during the war. It's a reality that is basically, again, people lost their houses, they left it or they stayed around. Hamas was using it. It got hurt by the war. And now let's deal with the reality.
So I'm not going to ask you to wade into American politics because that's never a good idea. But what do you see as the Trump effect in the Middle East? It's only been, a few days at this point. What do you see as maybe the narratives being changed, the impossible ideas maybe happening nowadays? So what do you see as the Trump effect in the Middle East right now?
Wow, that's even before he came into office, already right after he was elected, you could feel the difference. First of all, only today, Israel got, I think, few dozens of bulldozer D9s that were needed again to fight because that these bulldozers can lead forces and protect them from anti-tank missiles and stuff. They were held by the former government and they didn't get to Israel today. They did arrive. The deal that is going on right now between Israel and Hamas is a result of, for sure, Trump pressure. I can tell you as an Israeli that I'm not so sure that everyone are happy about it. And again, I'm not stepping into American politics. I can talk about Israeli feelings and Israeli politics as well. Also, with our other subject, we should definitely go into Israeli politics with that as well. But the feeling is that definitely there was strong pressure to just get a deal. And the deal that was on the table is the one we see today. I just only a minute ago, I just saw that the Iranians are even talking about negotiations about the nuclear situation of them with Trump. So there's a lot of changes. I cannot judge. I cannot tell you if it's good or not, but definitely there's a lot of changes. People hope for good and pray for good. And it seems like Trump's whole administration is definitely standing with Israel, and it's very good for us.
All right, Raj, thanks for that. Really appreciate it. That's going to leave us with time on the podcast today for one last thing.
Psalm 119, 114, you are my hiding place and my shield. I hope in your word. We talked about a lot of difficult topics today on the show, also some encouraging ones, but no matter what happens, we keep our hope in the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever might come our way. This side of eternity, there's always going to be tragedy. There's always going to be death, sadness, a certain amount of pain, but God's overcome all of that. So that is where we need to place our hope and our faith in times of need, and where we hide and where we seek refuge in times of need. But Lord willing, that creek don't rise on us. We'll be back here tomorrow. Make sure you're getting on over to cbnnews.com and faithwire.com for more news from a Christian perspective. God bless.